Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Before I get into this video, I'd like to ask you all to please leave a like or comment on my video, consider subscribing to my channel, and if you dislike the content, please leave a comment. Now, actually, this video and the previous video require your comments. The bigger they rated, the bigger their impact, the more people who have seen it, even if you leave dislikes, it just needs to grow in the amount of audience that sees it. It needs to grow to the point where the devs see it. Now, these aren't my scheduled videos. My scheduled videos are on that whole breaking the wall and playing in the interdiction spheres. Now, obviously, that's what I want to be making, but this issue is so pressing that I have to make sure that by Tuesday, all of this goes into the community. So if you do see this video, share it with the next person. Make sure more people view it. Make sure that it's popping up on their radar as a viral video for Eve. If it can make it to 50,000 or 100,000, if it can get the attention of a big video, this video will definitely help the game. I don't care whether you subscribe on this video. If you don't like my channel, I don't care about it. Just leave that like or dislike to get it up to the devs. Now, with everything that was implemented, that is the nerf to the Rapids, which was a fan favorite at 60% of the population, the interdiction spheres interfering with PvP gameplay, in the fact that it is going to be impossible to both run away and play, and that there is no roundabout system to the interdiction spheres. It is a big problem. I didn't know it was until, okay, only one person told me about the problem with the interdiction spheres. It isn't expanded to me by more than one person, and since it's from Genesis Federation, I take it as a big time problem because Genesis Federation is a massive PvP corporation. I did know that they had a little bit of an issue with the interdiction sphere. I never knew that it was more than one or two players who complained about it in their corporation. Now, with all of this being said, it made the issue a little bit worse. That means that not only did they interfere with 60% of the gameplay audience, they most likely interfered with something like 90% of the gameplay audience. Now, that 90% is everybody in the game. So they've given something for PvP, something for PvE. They increased the difficulty of PvE enemies. Now, with that introduction, it was okay for a little bit. Players were expecting a massive increase in rewards, billions of ISK of the T10s. But no, no, oh my, I don't even have the words to say this here. They messed up royally. They literally just opened Pandora's box and they said they're reducing rewards, increasing difficulty, and making it more difficult to complete those activities. Basically, they just took everything in Pandora's box, opened the chaos, and left it in the game. And they closed the box, making sure the hope is locked away. Now, there is that Pandora's box with the hope in it. And I am actually going to try and explain what they can do to bring the hope to the game. Now, considering that they have insulted the audience, which is one of the worst things you can ever do, it's not like that whole gimmick about talking to a pretty girl, insult her, and then make her feel better. That doesn't work with an audience in a game, and that is a very bad tactic to use in real life anyway. But here's the whole idea when it comes to building up the corporations and making everybody hold on to the gameplay. You now need to appease PvE, and this means that you're going to bend over backwards and change your game to the mobile gaming format. You're going to have to introduce a ton of things to make PvE players feel happy, and this means sacrificing out of your planned routine. Now, all things that are coming to the game in terms of weapons and stuff, make sure that you aren't bringing them in one place of danger with no counter to it. You're going to have to go back on everything that you have done. Cancel all those nerfs, cancel all the buffs. You are interfering with 60% of your gameplay market. Cancel it right away. There is no way you're going to succeed with that. If you implement it any further, the loss to the game is going to bleed impact. Now, you may be thinking that no, you're a big empire, you're a big game, you've got PC players playing on. Yes, you have PC players playing on this game, but tons of players, even PC players, I myself being one of those PC players, didn't like EVE Online for the fact that it was way too risky and it took way too much of time. Now, the same thing is being applied to the mobile version. It's becoming way too risky and it's giving you no reward and no way to rebuild easily. Now, rebuild easily is something that you always have to have. So, to suck up to the audience, they are going to basically have to take the encounters and triple the ISK rewards. Now, I know that that's going to sound terrible, but do I mean the reward for the mission? No, I mean the bounty on killing any ship. You need to balance it more. I've been not bragging, I've been preaching this basically on my channel for the past 3 or 4 days that PvE doesn't have enough bounty when it comes to killing enemies. And for example, that Syndicate route makes 50 billion ISK on killing PvE players a day, while the route inside, going through all your encounters, only makes you 7 million ISK. Rate your risk, rate your reward. 50 billion for attacking players who can't fight back, or making 7 billion on the risk of taking that path. You need to make it safe. Number one, everything which is PvE, the shortest routes, all safe 100%, no interdiction spheres within that range. So, in other words, interdictionless low sec. Now, in nullsec, you're still going to have a problem with your PvP players. How do you solve that situation? Right now, I'm going to take it piece by piece and go back to what they're going to need to do overall. So interdiction spheres are going to have to be implemented, but you're going to have to delay it till you have bookmarks or something to counter the effectiveness of your interdiction spheres, because the interdiction sphere on its own is going to impact the gameplay, and gameplay being impacted is going to irritate and aggravate players. And when players get aggravated trying to do PvE in the null sec and they losing 15, 16 battle cruisers a week, they're just going to quit. Because to be honest, it costs billions to make a battle cruiser and to have it at that strong point, and you're just getting ambushed by a bunch of chicken players sitting in the middle of a sector where they know your ship is going to pass through in an interdiction sphere with the intention of stopping your big expensive ship and attacking it while nobody is there to fight back. You'll have introduced the ability to offline autopilot. You'll either need to introduce something to counter that interdiction sphere, or you need to make another route around the interdiction sphere. Now, the fact that warp core stabilizers weren't working in it means it could be patched. They could make it as a 0.5 warp scramble strength within the interdiction sphere, which will reduce the effectiveness of it altogether and make it pointless. Or they could increase the power of the interdiction sphere to 3 warp scrambler strength with a negative side effect on all players within it. Now, that is a bad idea as well, but these are the things that are ideas that they can try and pass around to see how it works. But don't go opening a test server with a bad idea at this point. Now, introducing the new idea of the interdiction sphere was grand, but you needed something to counter it, as I'm saying. So, you're either going to put back your autopilot protection. Now, give it a cooldown in the start before protection kicks in. Make sure that the player has to be with the autopilot for 5 minutes before they can log out and leave it to run automatically through all systems. So they have to fight for 5 minutes in order to be able to instantly warp through all the systems safely. Now, I know that's asking for a lot, and it's asking you to change base code within the game. And I know that it is going to be quite difficult, and the fact that you're taking it from EVE Online and placing it into EVE Echoes is where most of your content is coming from. But that is something you might have to do, and it will not affect the PvP players. The fact that jumping into Warp instantly doesn't give you protection means that a player who is already in Warp is going to feel safe. That route through Syndicate might be able to remain instead of you making it a low sec. Interdiction spheres may be able to come into the game without players in nullsec feeling insulted by what you have done. Now, continuing with all of this, there are more problems to tackle. The fact that they wanted to interfere with the weapons means they're going to have to call off all of the nerfs and buffs. Now, I know that sounds drastic, but if you continue with it in any way, they're going to feel like they've been interfered with. And if it does happen that the missile players still feel like it's been interfered with, you're going to lose part of the audience. Now, you're guaranteed going to lose between 5 and 10% of the audience due to what you tried at this point. You should have waited for the game to die down a little bit. And when I say die down, I mean once the events start flowing in and out and things start feeling more natural in the game, that's when you introduce, here we go, we're having a massive event coming up, and with it is going to come a new type of weapon. However, in order to balance this weapon in, the weapon styles are going to shift a little bit. Or you can say that you're increasing the power on the pirates and slowly reduce the damage on key weapons. Now, when I say slowly, I mean 1% per update. That means it will take you 20 weeks before you manage to completely nerf that weapon. And it is fine. At that rate, the player base won't even know what's going on. They will be oblivious to what you have done. And don't put it in a patch note if you're going to do that. Players will notice it after a while, but it'll be too late for them to be upset and quit the game. You might get a 5 or 10% quit, but you'll never experience something like 25, 30, or even a 50% loss of your gameplay. So that's everything that I can discuss when it comes to nerfing weapons. Now, the buffing of the weapons, a lot of players were excited for it. Taking it away impacts less than 40%, about 30% of the gameplay base. And you don't want to just appease 30% of the gameplay base while angering 60% of the gameplay base. Leave it alone. Say that the weapon buffs have been delayed till next year January or next year February. Give the game some time to settle. Now, since you have offended the players and players have felt so bad, you're going to have to increase the bounties in PvE. And when I say increase the bounties, I don't mean play around with a 4 or 5% or 20% like you did with the weapons. You're going to have to give them full bounty the same way you give to PvP. Now, that's going to give every player a little bit of a boost, make players happier, make players jump into more activities. You're going to see players ratting the level 1s and level 2s and level 3 anomalies. Players are going to be happy. They're going to be enjoying themselves. Do not increase the difficulty. Do not interfere with them at all. Now, your missions, you're going to have to increase the rewards. A standard flat rate on the basic stories at T6, you're going to have to give the entry level stories at T6 something like 20 million as a base standard. Every single mission is worth 20 million as fair gain to every player. The T8 missions, improve it to a minimum of 80 million per T8 mission. Then your advanced T8 mission, put it up to 120 million. This is going to make your players feel a lot happier with everything instead of getting angry over an increase in difficulty. Now, moving on to the T10 missions, you're going to have to make sure that they're all worth 300 million. That is going to be the base standard. You're going to have it across all sectors, all factions. It doesn't matter whether it interferes with your plan of the game, because right now you have interfered with your game in a way that can't really be fixed with small little appeasing things like an event to the community. Plus, the fact that you haven't introduced daily logins the moment the old daily logins were lost is another major problem. And the last daily logins were a far cry from the original daily logins. It was an insult to the player base, and you were lucky that they didn't outrage about it. But nonetheless, more things which were wrong in that whole situation. Now, by appeasing the audience with these small things, you're only giving them a fraction of what needs to be done. Now, bounties are going to have to increase and the ISK is going to fly wild. That means that ships are going to be able to be bought by everybody. Everybody is going to start increasing in their gains. That means weapon prices and ship prices are going to start skyrocketing. Now, how do you implement any changes to the game? Introduce new systems and put them back to whatever is written on the penalties and so forth. Do not allow them to go outside of their descriptions. Do not change descriptions. Do not shift the meta of the game in any way. You need to treat it like a delicate little egg. Remember, you've cracked the shell. Now you don't want everything to fall out. You need it to fully mature so that the chick can come out of the egg. So you can have a chicken to roost in a few months' time. Now, once you reach somewhere around the 6-month mark, you need to start adding in new changes. Now, the fact that you don't have Modus Legion in the game is a massive, massive problem because the majority of favorite gameplay is missiles. And the Modus Legion is a missile-based faction. You need to get it in the game as fast as possible to appease the audience. And with your plan saying not now, you have really, really got to do this. It's not about the fact that players aren't going to be so upset. You want players to be excited. Now, when you introduce the Modus Legion, introduce a tiny little patch to the weapons. And when I say tiny, do not exceed 5%. Big 20% and 10% are going to aggravate the community. Even those 5% may aggravate the community. I'm not 100% sure on it because I wasn't expecting the outrage to be as bad as I've heard it being. Now, with all of this being said, you have a path forward leading you to secure your audience. Get new players into the game, make the game feel better, let the audience grow to 10 million players. On mobile gaming, this is a very easy thing to get. 10 million players, easy as 1, 2, 3. Now, advertise, grow, add in more packages, add in a little bit more pay to win factors to the game. I have said this here before, but you're going to have to do it. It isn't just for the sake of keeping the game balanced. You want to make players feel happy. The more players they see around them, the more busy they feel the game is, the more happy they are to play. They feel like they're part of a community. And that's the thing, it's a social activity that's going to keep people happy. Remember, we're living in a very, very harsh time in terms of social interaction. And by giving people that social feeling, you're helping big time. Now, with all of this being said, I know that my video has been very serious for today and it is way out of where I was planning. Now, I'm going to be going back to my other planned content with the interdiction spheres tomorrow. Maybe the interdiction spheres don't pop up now and they'll pop up in 2 or 3 months when they finally figure out how to balance it. But here is another thing to say: everything in your game should be out before you interfere with anything in terms of nerfing and buffing. That means your game has to be completely launched. Every shop has to be available. Players have to be very happy. And when I say very happy, I mean nothing needs to be questionable. PvE and PvP mustn't clash because you feel that PvP needs that route. You can get rid of that route in Syndicate. It's only going to affect 1 or 2 corps, and at maximum, it's going to lose you 30% of your gameplay audience. Against losing 60% of a gameplay audience, it is a joke. And it won't really impact you that heavy because you can just change it to a low sec in that area and they won't be able to run camps on that route. That route was poorly planned, or you can move that mission out of the area and move all missions from that area out. It's still going to make the PvP corp feel happy, but it's going to make your PvE players feel a lot happier at the fact that they can run around the map without the risk of hitting a nullsec. Now, all of this being said, you have helped boost your players' morale a little bit, and you haven't yet earned their trust. Remember, they're all going to feel betrayed by you because of what you had done with the test server. Now, with all of this comes rewards. You need to make your rewards feel like you're making them feel as part of your audience, part of your community. So, small little rewards don't cut it. You can't just give a medal and expect players will be happy with just the medal. Players didn't even notice the medal they got for the maintenance until weeks later. I don't even know if everybody knows about the medal, but you all did get a medal for that first maintenance. It was just so unnoticeable because it didn't arrive in the mail. Now, moving forward, what are they going to give you as ways to appease you in terms of the short play and in terms of rewards? Now, with these weekly and event monsters, they can introduce tougher opponents. So basically, they offer you an event where you now can play medium difficulty opponents and hard difficulty opponents within each of the territories. In other words, what they were planning to roll out as the update, they can now put it as event anomalies, another type of anomaly altogether. And with it, they can introduce the more difficult format opponents. Now, this is going to be way better because players will have the option between the standard anomalies and event anomalies. And if they like the event anomalies more and more, you slowly can roll them into the regular anomalies. And in something like 6 months' time, it'll all be one standard type anomaly. Now, with all of this being said, I am hoping that the audience, in terms of my subscribers, random people coming onto the channel, take this over to Eve. And how do you take it over to Eve? You boost this video up. As I'm saying, you don't have to subscribe on it. I may have asked for a subscription in the start of this, but don't even bother with it if you don't want to. Just boost it up. Share it in your corps. Tell everybody to just give it a like, give it a watch. If this video can get 50,000 or 100,000 views in the next 3 days, we may save our game. Because if it comes out by Monday that Eve sees it, by Tuesday they can make the announcement that all of those nerfs, all of those buffs, everything in the test server has been postponed to a later date. That's all they have to say, postponed to a later date. And we know that nerfs and buffs are part of the game, but it was a little bit too early. I didn't even think this was going to be such a case. I thought maybe the backlash will be like one or two players saying they don't like the situation, losing maybe about 1% of the gameplay audience. But the overall loss right now is raging towards a 50 or 60% loss. And with the amount of negative feedback, they need to be able to understand it. Their test server was a massive mistake. Making it a standard play was so big of a mistake because players would love to be able to just jump onto a server, test out whether a build works, and jump back onto the real server and aim for it. Now, what they did on this was make you earn your way to test their mistakes. And that's exactly what a player will say. They made you earn to test their mistakes. Because whether or not they were on that server, if it was just anything you want you can equip to your ship, you'll equip any ship you want and take it out for a flight. It will actually promote more play in terms of the game. Players will take bigger risks because they had a test server to run through. But no, you made the test server an actual gameplay test server. So you've angered the audience, and now the audience doesn't want to play fair. They want to play aggressively, they want to play how they want to play, and you have made it unfair on them. Now, what else can you do on the test server? You don't give missions, you give tastes of a mission. Wave 3, Wave 4, Wave 5, in other words, customizable options for you to play. And you don't give them the full mission, and you don't make them do encounters to open a mission on that server, or you don't make them purchase anything. The test server just needs to be a free server. Everything is free. You can go and test out a mission to see if you can solo it. If you can't solo it, you go and call in friends. It gives the player a sense of safety. So removing everything from your test server, make it a blank server with anybody able to test it and see whether or not they can do it. A solo play, in other words, is going to be isolated from everything else that a player does. So there's going to be no PvP in that solo play. They're going to have to test everything against anomalies. And when it comes to the anomalies, you can range your anomalies levels easy to extreme. So that's easy, medium, hard, difficult, and extreme. And extreme being the same level as a player. So that is what you need to do, and that is how this game needs to be formatted to really save it at this point. So thank you all for watching, and please promote this video up so that the devs see it and so that the devs know that this is a possible way to secure the game. Thank you all.